Give it some!
Welcome to Don't Everybody Leave. Say howdy to Mac King.
Howdy, I'm Mac King. Hey, you guys aren't on screen now. You're supposed to shut up.
Meow.
I am Mac King, and we have a very special edition of Don't Everybody Leave today because we have our first guest who is not officially a magician. I'm very excited. And in addition to Rich Ross, our special guest, we have the usual folks reading left to right. Jason, Vinny, Jacob, Nick, Goudeau, and I am Mac King. Welcome. And I'm trying a new experiment. Look at this. Eyeglasses free, wearing contacts. And during my regular show at Harrah's, I don't wear either. I don't wear contacts or eyeglasses because I feel like I don't really need to see anybody.
You're wearing contacts now, Mac?
I am wearing contacts right this very second, Jason.
Oh, cool. And is everything, is it working out for you? Okay. I mean, are they working?
I see you a little more clearly than I see everyone else.
Oh, okay. Good.
I didn't know you could. I didn't know you could patronize somebody using technology.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to do it, but it required Vaseline. So,
oh yeah, I should. Yeah, I'm getting to the age now where I should have Vaseline on my camera lens.
An older generation of comedian.
Yeah.
Clearly, you're in the circus.
What did they used to shoot through? Like a stocking or something, right? Didn't they used to, instead of Vaseline on the lens?
Yeah, there's a few Hitchcock like dream sequences that are like that. I think
shot through pantyhose.
Yeah, through pantyhose.
just like everything great in life.
It's the name of my rock band in the 80s.
Shot through pantyhose.
So are you guys, have you been boning up? I have not. Did I say boning up?
You did.
I actually appreciate it if you'd stop saying it. Boning up on what?
Science. We have a real live scientist going to join us.
Oh, cool.
I'm excited.
Well,
boning
yeah,
up is the wrong way to put it, I guess.
All
But
day long. If you've been boning up for more than 4 hours, Mac, you should.
I should consult my physician.
Call your physician.
I think I'm probably fourth or fifth or sixth least scientifically literate of all the co-hosts. I think Goudeau and Jason are at the top. Jason, you've actually been in zero gravity, and I've always wanted to ask you about that. Can you explain how that worked and tell me that you were nude while you were doing it? Because that's important.
No, I wasn't, but I wish I was. No, so I was a guest of Richard Garriott, who at that time owned stock in the Zero Gravity Corporation or was part owner or something like that. He may still be for all I know, but he was back then. And he took me, Brad Henderson, Michael Weber, Eric Mead, and Derek Delgadio. And I'm sure there was a bunch of other people, but those are the magicians that our core audience would probably recognize as sort of a tip for performing for his release party of one of his video games. He took us to the airport there in Austin, and we boarded the zero gravity jet, which back then was actually stationed here in Las Vegas. It stayed at this airport. I don't know if it still does or not, but it was here at the Vegas airport. It flew down to Austin. It picked us up. And then apparently one of the only places that you can do these parabolic flight patterns is out over the Gulf of Mexico. So we flew from Austin out over the Gulf, and we did, I believe, 15 parabolas. The first one was Martian gravity. It simulated Martian gravity, which means the parabola is not quite as steep as some of the others. So you weren't weightless, you weren't able to float, but you could do you could do a push-up for lying on the ground. If you did a push-up, you would come up to like a 45-degree angle before you fell back down. Then we did a lunar gravity, where if you did a push-up, you could practically stand yourself up completely. And then we did 12 or 13, 0G or microgravity parabolas. And the interesting thing about that is if, when they're doing the climb part of that parabolic flight path, if your feet are pointing towards the front of the plane, well, you're lying on the ground. You can't stand up during that because it'd be dangerous. You'd fall and bump into people. But if your feet are pointing towards the front of the plane, all the blood rushes to your head, and it feels terrible. It's like you're hanging upside down, but worse because you're moving upwards pretty fast. If your feet are pointing towards the tail of the plane, all the blood rushes to your feet, and you get a little lightheaded. And so it took us a while to figure out to try to kind of lie sideways as we're doing.
You get an erection.
Exactly.
So 4 times your regular erection.
So the other thing about that is that the first 2 or 3 are fantastic. It's the most fun you've ever had in your life. But there is a cumulative effect to doing that. And all of the astronauts in training, they always throw up, always. And the reason they do is because the government wants as much bang for their buck as they can get. So they send those guys out to do 30, 40, 50 parabolas per flight. We did 15. First 3 or 4, fantastic. It's like being on a roller coaster. And in between, you just sort of lie there for a minute or so going, oh, man, this is the greatest thing ever. And then after about 8 or 9 of them, you're lying in between them going, whew, okay, this has been a lot of fun, but I'm starting to feel it. And then by like the 13th or 14th, you're like, let me off this fucking plane. This sucks. I don't ever want to do it again. And it really starts to get to you after a while. I don't think any of us threw up, any of the magicians I mentioned earlier. We all had a blast and none of us threw up. But I think there's a video clip of me and Weber and Eric Mead and Delgadio and Brad Henderson somewhere on YouTube doing all this, probably on one of my 2 or 3 YouTube videos on my YouTube channel.
That's why I brought it up.
It's a lot of fun.
I think you did a card trick in zero gravity.
I did center deals and bottom deals. First person to center deal in microgravity, I'm pretty sure.
How do they? Our card moves harder with no gravity or easier?
Well, your attention is a little divided. Normally, when I'm center dealing, I don't have to be worried about bumping into the ceiling. So your attention and your focus is a little divided when you're doing that. Because when what's funny is a lot of people think that you become weightless on the downswing of that parabola. And the truth is just like jumping off a ramp, a physical ramp, you're actually weightless the minute you leave the vertical. So the weightlessness starts there, right as you start to head over the top of that parabola. That's when weightless begins. And it actually, when they come out of it, before the plane has even gotten fully level, as it's starting to nose up, the floor of that airplane is coming up to meet you. And if you're not careful, it comes up a lot faster than you think, and you can get hurt in there for sure. So yeah, you're having a good time, but it's like elbows and feet and knees are all over the place, and you can get hurt if you're not careful. So
what did you, Jason, when you were dealing, what did you deal onto? Was like Delgadio going like this for you, or
no? When you're doing that, you can't control anything. So like if you push off the wall of the aircraft, you're going to the other side of the aircraft. There's nothing that can stop you unless you can get a foot down on the ground or if you can touch the ceiling. So you're just sort of bumping into each other and banging around in there. So I was just flinging cards out into the air. And then as you come out like that, everything hits the ground and you can sort of scramble and grab all the playing cards or whatever. I think Weber brought a little toy elephant with him, and he floated an elephant I think that's on the video that I've got. So it was a lot of fun. We had a good time.
Last time I talked to the 0G guys, they said they had perfected a mix of anti-nausea medications that would keep people from throwing up.
In boning up for our guest, trying to learn as much science stuff, I saw this.
Finally.
Yeah.
And I'm surprised Jason didn't bring this up because Jason is really in tune to the Asian medical world of devices. But I think they're doing it wrong. If you look down, it doesn't seem like...
That's incorrect.
Or are they just showing that the swabs are multi-use?
I get one end.
How does this taste?
Hey, on that anal note, let's say we introduce Rich Ross, a marine biologist and juggler.
Hi, Rich.
This is actually a set in my house that I have of a
He'll
car.
blue screen of his car.
It helps me when I bone up on my swabbing.
Man, I'm so glad. I seriously, Rich, that exact sweater I wore on the last episode.
Did you really?
Yep.
That's awesome.
And so if you want an autographed copy.
Yeah.
As seen on the last episode.
Fantastic. So are you outside your studio at the moment? Is that where you are?
My daughter rides horses, which means I drive her somewhere and then I sit in a car until she's done. And that's how the scheduling worked out. When you said, was I available? I said, I'd be in a car. And so, so I was blowing glass this morning and then I ran home and got her. And then we came up here.
Glass is his dog.
Philip. No, it's Philip. Philip Glass.
Philip Glass.
Very famous.
Some random guy named Glass. It's whoever it is.
You blow him well enough, he writes a score for you.
Get it on Tinder and Grindr if you put in blowing glass. You get a whole plethora of choices.
So when people ask you what you do you say juggler, glass blower, or marine biologist?
Say your mom.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Ding, ding, ding.
Whose idea was it to have this motherfucker on?
That's right. You bring a juggler, we bring game.
yeah. Oh. Actually, I was thinking about that question last night because I've been trying to figure out how to answer that question. And I think that I'm going to say I'm happy when people say, what do you? Or, I'm happy. Or what do you do? I try to be happy.
So what do you do? You can't say, in my house, you can't say, what do you do? And the answer be happy, because that's my dog's name.
Oh, okay.
That's what Jacob does.
I would say
Oddly, most of Mac's relatives, that is their answer.
Right.
they do happy.
Were you blowing glass today, though?
I was.
Prior to Horsey time?
Prior to Horsey. Yeah, I built and opened a glass studio like 20 years ago and then stopped doing it. And now for the past 4 or 5 years, I've been doing it more. And now that we figured out how to do it COVID safe, we're in there 4 or 5 days a week.
The house that I live in, I sold 7 years ago now. And then we missed it and we bought it back. And I'm back in the house that I used to live in.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. And the house that we sold to buy this house back, we sold it to the woman that we bought that house from.
Wow.
No, I have an equal amount of marine biology questions and discussions to bother you with and show business ones. Which do you want first? Because we're doing all of them.
Dealer's choice.
Dealer's choice. Okay. So before you were a marine biologist, you were a comedy juggler.
I was.
In the same circle as Goudeau, but you guys were never partners, right? At least not in the professional sense. You were biblically partners, right?
Biblically partners. We've done a few shows together, but
We have done a few.
We're never partners in the true sense.
And when you're a comedy juggling duo,
which means we don't hate each other.
We can still be friends.
yeah, Goudeau and I hang out less and less the more shows we do together. I don't know why.
I don't know why either.
I'm always interested in worst gig ever, but I'm also interested in because I know you guys used to open for a bunch of folks back in the 80s and 90s. Who are the highlights of that?
The highlights of that was the Smothers Brothers was the highlight.
Holy shit! Yeah,
that was pretty awesome. and completely starstruck and had no idea how to deal with them in the green room before the show. And, you know, I want to be cool, but I want to just fucking fall down and cry. And sadly, this was like before cell phones were a thing. So we have like one shitty picture of like me goosing. Looks like I'm goosing Tommy. They were really nice. Tommy was really nice. He was like, "Come in, here are my yo-yos." And Dickie kind of
Nick, do you have a yo-yo? Do you have a yo-yo within arm's reach, Nick Diffatte?
I don't. They're all in the casita.
We have our own yo-yo man.
Excellent. And it was great. Their show was amazing because they had switched characters at this point. So it was Dickie getting out of control mad at Tommy, and Tommy being very calm and cool. And Dickie just out of control mad, but still the same characters, just frustrated.
What year are we talking?
98 maybe 96.
Oh yeah, see, to me that's recent actually.
In the history of the Smothers Brothers, that is recent.
That is recent. They were great.
I'm always curious how you're received when people are there definitely to see somebody else that they love and haven't heard of you or don't expect you.
I think that depends on the venue. So this was at Canocti Harbor, which is a great venue, and it was the indoor venue, which is even better. So everybody is there to have a good time and enjoy themselves. So even though it was a duo act opening for a duo act, they were fine with it. Because when they called, we were like, we're doing half the same style stuff you guys are going to.
We're doing our best Smothers Brothers impersonation.
Yeah. And then we opened for another person we opened for twice was Weird Al. And we opened for him once at Canocti as well. And that was fantastic. And everybody was totally happy with the opening act. We also opened for him at the San Mateo County Fair, to which the audience just fucking hated us. They just wanted us to die and get off the stage as quickly as possible. And they started chanting Weird Al during our set. Some of the people did. But it was just like the people in the front 4 rows. So the next 100 rows back, everyone was like, I don't understand. So we had to have this fight with these people up front or choose to ignore them and play to the whole rest of the house, which we eventually did. And the show was better for it. But that was weird to have them be very unhappy.
Early on in my club career, I was a middle act. I'm not going to say who was the headliner, but the St. Louis Funny Bone. And it was it's an all bone theme show, really. And I do my little magic show, and then the comic comes on after me, and he's just eating it. This guy was having a rough week. And so halfway into his set, the audience starts going, Mac, K, Mac, K. And so that was, I felt really terrible, but also the next time that I did bookings with Funny Bone, I came back as a headliner because they switched us later that week. Right. Switched our spots. Oh, wow. So I felt bad and good.
I think you're misrepresenting how good you felt.
Yes, I am. I felt bad and good.
When they started chanting, did you go out or did you just...
No, good Lord, no. That seems like it would be worse.
And then remember when that guy beat up Mac?
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, you can't say who it is, but are his initials Ron White?
No. Ron had opened Ron opened for me a couple of times in those Funny Bone clubs, and he was really, he was the other way around. He was really hard to follow. He was great.
He crushes it every time.
Yeah.
It was Freddie Prince that Mac is talking about, but he handled it well, I think.
For the non-comedy nerd, Jason England just made a suicide joke about a beloved dead comedian. There are a few people listening that might not hate Jason in that moment, and I wanted to make sure they could join the rest of us.
Oh my god.
We opened for Tanya Tucker once, and she was in her bus, and we were supposed to do 40 minutes or whatever, and 30 minutes comes by, and we're getting this sign in the wings, wrap it up. So we jump to the finale. We do the finale, which puts crap all over the stage, and we end. And I look into the wing, and they're going. We're like, what the fuck? We just ended. So we did some weird end runaround and did some other bit. And it turned out that Tanya had locked herself in her bus. And we were like, how do you do that? And then, she had to come out the window. And it was like, oh, okay. And then we just left because that was weird.
Hey, Mac, didn't some guy tell you a long time ago, back when you were doing shows, you asked a guy, what time you got there, sir? Didn't he say something?
Yes. Oh yeah. I've done 35 minutes or something. It was in the club, I think. And I'd done like 35 minutes, had another 20, 15 to go. And I start the bit by asking the guy what time it is, because I'm going to take his watch later and whatever. And so, and I want to show my wrist empty because his watch ends up on my wrist at the end. And what time is it, sir? My watch is off. And yeah, about time for you to wrap it up, I think. It got a huge laugh from everybody, me included. What do you do?
I have a similar story, and you have a better version of that story, Mac. And I will now tell both of them because you don't know mine and you don't remember yours.
Good. Yeah, please go, Jacob.
I was doing a street show once. I gathered a crowd out on the Las Vegas Strip, and the show went pretty well. I'm passing the hat at the end. People are tipping, and what looked like a 12-year-old girl came up at the end, and she said, she's smiling and looking very compassionate. She said, "I'm sorry if I didn't look that impressed. I read a lot of magic books." And then she walked off.
So, Mac,
nice of you to apologize for that. But Mac, your version of that, which I love better, is you were going to a show here in town. I forget which one it was, but it doesn't matter. And on the way in,
a show, you mean?
Yeah, you were attending a show.
Yeah.
And a guy recognized you on the way in and said, "Oh, Matt King, I saw your show. It was pretty good." And as a joke, you said, "Pretty good." And he went, "Well, I see a lot of shows." He's like, that'll teach you to do an arrogant joke. Holy shit. Oh.
John Lovick and I were sitting in a comedy club here in Las Vegas 10 or 15 years ago, and there was a comic on stage that was absolutely bombing and blaming the audience for not laughing at any of the jokes. And at one point, this comic looked at Lovick, who typical Lovick is sitting there like this, and made the mistake of saying, "Sir, what do you do for a living?" And within a microsecond, Lovick goes, "I'm a stand-up comic. What do you do?"
Is that a new haircut you have?
It is. It's my
I was going to say, the last time I saw you, you looked like this.
That's us playing golf.
Walkabout mini golf, which we all play together. We all love that. Except for Jason.
Fun.
We can't get Jason. Jason has a headset, but we haven't gotten him to play.
I don't know if it's the right kind. I don't even know where that headset is. I don't know if it's the right kind of headset or not.
If you pulled up a Viewmaster right now,
I got one right above my head.
Yeah, Max got one.
Oh
Yeah.
And incidentally, Jacob does this podcast the same way that he plays VR mini golf, which is seated.
And he doesn't ever know when it's his turn to talk.
all true. All true.
Did you cut your own hair, Rich?
I cut most of it, and then my kid came in and made it neater. And
I love that joke.
I'm just letting it grow.
Is that okay?
You know what? The one that's fascinating is how you became a marine biologist, because you were a juggler. And how did you make that jump? I just think it's great.
Started juggling cuttlefish.
I did. I was giving anal swabs to the right people. I was juggling, and I became a stay-at-home dad when my kid was born, because my wife and I thought someone should stay at home with the kid, and we talked about who should it be. And she's a financial planner, and we said, okay, who's got the best insurance? And as a juggler, you lose that discussion every time. It's never you. So I was a stay-at-home, which was great. And I got way back involved in keeping marine animals again. I had done that, in high school and college some. When she went to preschool, my wife said I should talk to adults for a while, because, boy, little kids are cute, but after 5 years, they're less cute. And so that was pretty much the only job I would have ever taken. And that's kind of how it happened. I just kind of went from doing it to being paid for it. So that was pretty cool.
Rich, you and I have never met before. Where is home for you right now?
The San Francisco Bay Area.
Okay.
So I was at the Academy of Sciences.
Gotcha.
And raising cephalopods, because
oh yeah, I was doing that. Oh, that's right, that's true. I had
he was the only guy able to get cephalopods to breed at home.
Yeah,
He's ignoring all the real science parts.
I'm understanding now. I'm remembering. I was breeding cuttlefish, Sepia bandensis, dwarf, or the stumpy cuttlefish, and I closed the whole life cycle.
Wait, stumpy cuttlefish?
Stumpy is one of the common names. It's a great animal, and I raised it was able to get some eggs, and I raised them up from eggs and then bred them, and was able to get those eggs to hatch and continue with the new generation.
And no one had ever done that before?
Not with this species. And when I started, there was really only a few species that people had done. In marine aquarium worlds, the breeding of those animals has only really started to take off in any real sense in the last 15, 18 years. And so
do you feel like you were able to do this because of something in your breast milk?
Yeah, well, because I have 2 rows of teats, I was able to many cuddles at the same time.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's I don't really talk about the teats that often.
I know that you give a lot of talks on like a critical thinking view of marine life and animals. And I know nothing about this, but I do know that everybody talks about octopi and squid and cuttlefish as they're so unbelievably smart. And can you, for a bunch of idiots who aren't scientists, tell us if that's true or not?
Well, I can, but I need to qualify it huge, because how do you define smart is the thing.
We're not it. How would you define it?
Clearly.
If there's a Venn diagram, we're over here.
I think if you have more arms, you're smart.
Is that true? I have never heard that definition before. I like it. I'm gonna then
simple.
Using the Goudeau definition, they're wicked smart.
You only have 2, you fucking idiot.
You fucking idiot. Get to the back of the tank. They're clever. How smart is a dog?
Right. I don't know anything about it for any organism. So
certainly the octopus has pretty significant problem-solving skills. I mean, you can give them all sorts of little puzzles,
Well, so there's 3 or 4 of us who work in cephalopods, or sometimes work in cephalopods that privately we call ourselves the dream crushers. And we get calls and for interviews, and they always say they're really smart, and I go, well, and then they know, and then they call somebody else who will just tell them what they want to hear. But there's something definitely going on there. The problem solving is a really interesting thing to talk about, because are they problem solving, or are they just doing what they do normally, right? So in the wild, if an octopus is looking for food, it's moving around and it sees a crab, and it will envelope a rock and reach under the rock and reach for the crab and try to find it and, scare it into its arms, right? So you put anything in an octopus tank, it's going to jump on it and check it out and see if it's food. Is that smart? I'm not really sure. It does. There is some studies that show that they can recognize faces, which is really interesting and cool. This is a great study. They had the people come in dressed the same, and one of them would give the octopus a treat, and then another person would come in with a spiky brush.
An anal swab.
And anal swab them with this spiky brush. After about a week, when the person with the food would come in, the octopus would come to the top of the tank, and the person with the spiky brush came in. The octopus would go to the back of the tank and not come up to the surface. So they were able to make that distinction. They can open jars, but I think that's overblown, because we train them to open a jar. If you put a sealed jar in the tank with the octopus will feel it, look at it, pull on it, and then leave it alone because nothing happens. But if you put the jar in open with food inside, the octopus can get into that because it's just open. And then you put the lid on really loose and they can feel it move, so they just jiggle it around till it pops off the threads. Then you tighten it up over time and they figure out how to open it. There's also, I did this once with a big octopus in a Nalgene bottle, and I'm convinced that it wasn't unthreading the Nalgene bottle at all. It was just ripping the threads. It was just popping the lid straight off. Because they're strong like that. We need an endoscope to see if that's true. There is some, they have the appearance so much of being really intelligent, but it's really hard to parse out. My favorite story about this is there was an aquarium, I think it was in Tennessee, that they had a press release or an interview where the people in charge of the octopus were talking about how smart they were. And they said it's as smart as a 6-year-old child.
From Tennessee.
What's funny about that, a couple things funny about that, it starts earlier. Usually it's like, first it was 2 years old, then it was 3 years
Right.
old. As people told it just got, this is like a PhD student. So what are you talking about? And so I wrote to this to the person who was quoted in the article. And I said, you might want to consider not saying that, because you're telling the public you're keeping an animal as smart as a 6-year-old child in a 1 yard by 1 yard square box for its entire life. It's probably a terrible, terrible thing to advertise. Come watch us torture the smart thing.
So, Rich, I got a question for you. This is like a real science question. I spent 2 years in Okinawa.
Nice.
That's a question.
And that is not a question. Scuba diving every day. I did over 500 dives in 711 days. And probably every single dive, we would see an octopus, especially if we were on the East China Sea side.
Sure.
If we're on the Pacific side, there wasn't nearly as much life over there. But and one of the most fascinating things that we witnessed on a half a dozen occasions, easy, and maybe a lot more than that, was an octopus moving across the seafloor. And I'm going to anthropomorphize a little bit here, but maybe not as much as I think. When it would settle, I swear, as it settled, it kind of looked around to see what the stuff looked like that it had settled onto, and then instantly, changed its skin coloration to match whatever it had settled on. So if it was sitting on light colored sand, it would try to, almost bleach itself white. If it got into the rocks, it would look like the rocks, it'd be a mottled color. But then it could also change its surface. It looked like it could pull little bits of skin up off its surface almost instantaneously.
Yeah.
So are they looking around and visually matching, or are they just getting lucky and cycling through a couple of different default settings that they can do?
We're not really sure. It's probably both. There's some theories that octopus can't see color, which would make the whole thing even more interesting. and some theories that the iridophores in the skin are able to kind of match the background by themselves. That it may not be a conscious, it may not always be a conscious move on the part of the octopus. Although it does seem like they can take it over. They can do bilateral coloration where, this half their body is dark and this half is light. So that's often if there's a female over here and something they think is a threat over here, they're on the one side, they're going, hey, baby. And on the other side, they're going, she's mine. So it's really cool. How they do it, we're not really sure. Because you're absolutely right. They can match those things that pop up are called papillae, and they have they're instantaneous. So they can be swimming along, land on an algae covered rock, and become the same color and texture as the algae to the point where they're really difficult to see. When we were collecting them in Hawaii for display, the rule that we made was, everyone's looking for an octopus, but if you see one, you point at it and you put your other hand in the air and you just sit there and stare at it and don't lose sight of it. Because if you see one and you go, hey, it's gone underwater, but you go like this and then go back, you'll not, even if it's in the same place, you may not see it.
Yeah. So one of the times that I was diving in Okinawa, I surfaced and I had 700 PSI of air left in my tank. And as I surfaced, there was one of the Okinawan fishermen standing up there, and he didn't speak perfect English, but he communicated to me that his line was stuck on something. And would I follow the line down 30 or 40 feet and just unhook it? He figured it was a rock. So, it's not easy to see fishing line in the water. And I certainly didn't want to find that hook and have it dig into my skin. So I grabbed hold of the line and I followed it down very slowly and carefully. And as I got 30 or 40 feet down where it went in, the line, I swear, disappeared right into the middle of a rock. Yeah. And I was like, what? How is that? That doesn't make any sense. And I touched it. And of course, it did one of these. And I was like, holy shit, that's an octopus. It was the size of a soccer ball. And I know, other than you, probably no one else here has ever held an octopus underwater. And if you wanted to hurt one, you could do it instantly. But if you're being careful with it, it's amazing how strong they are. Yeah. And how difficult it is to get one off of you once it starts grabbing a hold of regulators and grabbing a hold of your snorkel and pulling on it, which cracks the seal on your mask and all that. And they're kind of a handful. I mean, an octopus the size of a grapefruit is more than you can handle if you're trying to be careful with it.
Exactly.
If they get any bigger than that, you are outmatched. I guarantee it.
Yeah. When we have people do interactives with the giant Pacific octopus, we're very careful about how much they allow themselves to get wrapped up in the arms.
Yeah.
Because if they decide to hold on, I mean, it turns out once you're comfortable with them, you can also put a lot of force on their arms to peel them off of you.
Right.
But if you don't have that experience and you're trying to be nice, it feels all kinds of wrong to be yanking on them to get off. Yeah. To get them off of you. You put them somewhere else to get off. But you want to watch out for the beak.
I never got bit, and we were too far north, I think, for like the blue ring octopus to be an issue. So I never got bit by an octopus, but I saw someone that got bit by one once, and it just looked like a bird, like a parrot had bitten them, and it's the same sort of kind of similar looking beak as a bird's beak, right?
Yep, very, very similar.
Yeah, I never saw one, but
do we know if they're all venomous now or not?
We believe they all have some amount of venom,
right?
Cephalotoxin, and so just like with a bee sting, some people react badly and some people don't.
Right.
But it's a good assumption.
So real quick, Rich, I wanted to ask you a question about something that combines two of your interests. So I've had this magazine for 20 years. I bought it in 2001. And the reason I kept it around is because I like the I like the subject matter, but I also use it as kind of an example of one of the most amazing things I've ever seen. And I used to tell people about it. You'll probably know what this immediately. So this is the photo.
Yes.
And so I used to show this to people, and I would say, I want you to look at this. And they would look at it, and I'd say, what do you see? And they say, I see an octopus. And I'd say, that's sort of correct. I say, but there's three things that are kind of cool about this particular octopus. The first is that it is not now, and nor was it ever alive.
Yeah.
And they go, okay. And that gets a funny look. And then I say, the other interesting thing about it is it's made entirely of glass.
Yeah.
And they say, okay. And then the third interesting thing about it is that it's about 150 years old.
Yeah.
And it's one of the Blaschka models, which I think started off at Harvard, and now Cornell, I believe, has the largest collection of the Blaschka models.
Yeah.
What do you think about those? Being a glass blower and an octopus and cephalopod expert, I mean, these things are just unbelievable, aren't they?
They are unbelievable. Unbelievable. And as far as I know, there's no document of how they did it.
Yeah.
Those two Czech brothers. So no one's really sure what they did, but they sure did a hell of a job. And they did all those flowers and anatomical specimens. Just amazing work. See.
If anybody wants to purchase any of the sculptures that Rich has made in glass, go to MacKingShop.com. I did want to say, I don't know how much time we have left. I know Vinny had some science stuff he wanted to do. And
if you wanted to play a game, a little game.
Always.
All right. So this game is, so you think you're a marine biologist expert. Is the name of the game.
Okay.
And it's you versus anyone here. You can choose who you want to play. I just got some questions that I typed out. I did it really scientifically. I used Wikipedia, so everything is legit. And the first person to get 3 questions right wins one of your glass sculptures.
Okay. This all seems totally fair and awesome.
So who do you want to play against?
Jacob.
Okay.
Good choice.
Unless
so you get to win
play.
one of your own sculptures.
Do you want to go first, or would you like Jacob to go first?
Jacob.
Jacob goes first. Okay. Jacob, true or false? Finding Nemo is a true story. True or false? Finding Nemo is a true story.
Oh, that's false.
Yeah, but if you say it enough, people will believe it. That's the. Which species of shark has the 3rd longest lifespan?
False.
Correct.
No, it's a spine dog fish is the answer to that. So it's Jacob 1, Rich nothing. Jacob, if an octopus has 8 intact limbs and one is bitten off by a shark, how many intact limbs remain?
7.
7 is correct. That's 2. Rich, we got. This is a long one. I have invertebrates, axons, nerve fibers are sheathed in a fatty tissue that helps speed the transmission of neural signals. This may have allowed mammals to evolve larger bodies by enabling rapid communication between the central brain and distant body parts. An octopus's neural system lacks this fatty tissue and thus evolved a different strategy that relies on local neural communication. The question is, what is that fatty tissue called?
It's called
myelin. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but myelin was the answer.
I've heard of
So I won.
urolin, but not urolin is the less selfish version of the myelin.
For Jacob, and this is for the win. what is your favorite fish? What is your favorite fish?
Fillet of.
Well, Jason is also a mind reader, so I think we're done.
Congratulations, Jacob. So just private message Rich your address, and he'll get one of those glass sculptures out to you right away.
Or if you just go pick up the one about them at the
MacKingShop.com. Yeah.
Yeah.
Use the
Any of
promo
glass
code.
sculptures on that site currently, I'm happy to send it.
So, Mac, I don't know what you have planned, but we have to show this video before we end.
Oh yeah, no, we got plenty of time. We've only been going like 50 minutes. So
let's do more Vinny's questions then.
no, let's not. But we have plenty of time, and I think it would be better if you have something cool to show us.
So, Rich, nobody here knows what the video is except you and I. And our tech person is the best way to. Should you set this up? I mean, we've set it up kind of by talking about how many talks you've given and how knowledgeable you are. But
you didn't know any of those fucking questions. What are you talking about?
It was rigged.
I was doing an employee exchange at the Georgia Aquarium for a week, and the Georgia Aquarium has the huge tank. Mike, now
I know what video this is.
They have a 6 million gallon tank that they have whale sharks in.
It's the largest aquarium tank in the world. Yeah.
It's the largest aquarium tank in this hemisphere.
In Georgia.
Hey, on the outside of the Singapore Aquarium, it says the largest aquarium in the world. I've been there.
Yeah. It's the largest aquarium. They don't have one single tank that's that size, but they have.
That's like being voted the best magic act in Vegas.
Best afternoon at.
Yeah, at Harris.
I'm not saying it's not worth getting.
We're just saying if you didn't get it, we don't give a fuck.
Right. All right.
Okay, so you're at the Georgia Aquarium.
So it's a huge. It's like two.
It's a big ass aquarium.
It's a big ass aquarium. It's open on the top. And we would go up there every day and like look at the whale sharks and stuff from the top. And I was taking all kinds of crazy pictures as much as I could. And so this was the last day, and I had my camera and I was taking photographs as the whale shark was coming by. I think it's probably smart to roll the video now, and then I can tell you the funnier part of the story afterwards. So I'm in the back. I'm kind of in front of that bridge. There's two guys in front, and I just fell in the tank.
Oh, wow.
Save the camera.
Whale shark's the size of a school bus.
I also think I'm the only person to ever fall into the tank. I don't think anybody else has done that before or after. But what was happening? Oh, it's running again. How exciting!
I mean, it looks like you just decide. It looks like you just decide to walk into it.
Well, that's yes. Yeah. Now this is where the juggling and the biology comes together, because I was using a piece of grate on the deck at the edge to know how close I was to the edge, so I wouldn't fall in, so I could feel the texture difference. And I got to a point where all of a sudden I felt, when you're falling and you're falling.
Yeah, you're too far.
You're not going to be able to stop it. And so I was past that point of no return, and I had my big camera. So I figured, and also there was a whale shark under me.
You were going to fall on the shark if you didn't jump.
I was going to fall on the fish. And I also had my camera, so I decided I would jump. And I knew I was falling from all the years of doing rollabola. It's like, no, this is not a recoverable. I'm not at a recoverable angle. I'm going in. So I jumped and held the camera up and held my other arm out so I could swipe down and push myself up against my own force, hopefully saving the camera, which I did. I was very happy about that. And I missed the whale shark. And the people on the deck were like, what the hell just happened? Like those two people who were standing there, one of them's name was Alan and the other was Steve. And they kind of turned and
Steve Allen?
As I was in the air. And I kind of made eye contact with Alan going, I'm sorry. And Steve was like, why did you just jump in the tank? Because it just they
Right, because if a human touches this water, we have to drain the entire thing.
That's right, especially me. And so they pulled me out of the tank, and what had happened was that grating stops at a certain point on the deck, but I didn't realize it. And so I was on the part with no grating. And the reason why the grating stops is because just below that area is a big viewing window in the private conference room. Right? And in the conference room that week happened to be the International Whale Shark Conference. And they were all on a coffee break, their first coffee break of the conference, looking out of the window at the time I jumped in.
Is that Dr. Ross?
Yeah. All of the International Whale Shark researchers were there.
So it's just
and they saw me and saw my legs, saw me get pulled out of the tank, and had no clue what had happened or what that was about.
I just love watching whale sharks, and then all of a sudden, sneakers,
boots. So I immediately got out. They were more concerned about my phone and my camera, which was nice. And I was soaked. So we're walking to a place where I can get different clothes. And I immediately pulled out my text, and I texted my boss, a friend that I work with, another aquarist, and I think Scotty Meltzer, and wrote, because I thought, I better get ahead of this now or I'm in trouble. And I've got to make this funny.
Scotty's another comedy juggler who will rip you apart for this.
Yeah. And I just texted my Uber boss as well. And I texted, who's got 2 thumbs and just fell into Ocean Voyager? This guy. And then we dried my clothes and we were walking around and we ran into a group from the Whale Shark Conference who recognized my clothes and went, "You're the guy! You're the guy!" And then they all took pictures with me, and then that was the end of it.
Well, they're so envious. You were in the tank with the sharks.
In the tank.
They like that.
Yeah. That was a thing.
You know, if you have to fall into a tank with an enormous shark in it, you chose wisely.
Yeah.
You know.
Oh God! And then I was like, tell me there's security camera footage of this. Tell me there's footage and that I can get my hands on it. And they looked at me like I was freaking crazy. They couldn't
Get your hands on it. It's going to be on the news.
Yeah, well, I was hoping. And so, so they finally, I got one of them to get it to me. So oddly enough, they've never asked me back.
That's funny because Jacob and I scuba dove in that tank and they ask us back every week.
Every week, yeah.
Because we paid them $600 each to do it.
Yeah.
It's a good time.
Yeah, that's a fun
really
dive.
cool.
I got to do
Rich,
it.
how do I get to dive with the great Pacific Northwest octopus? You mentioned that earlier. You said you can you put people in close proximity to those guys. How do I get to do that?
You won't get to dive with it, but some public aquariums will do an interactive. Where they
have you been up to like have you been diving with them off like the coast of Washington or Oregon or wherever they are up there?
No, it's cold up there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be cold. When things are good, we should go dive with them.
Yeah, I would love it. Like I said, it's all I did. It's all I did for 2 years in Okinawa, and then I moved to Colorado Springs, where there's not a lot of great diving. So I got away. I got away from it, and I hate cold water diving. I can't stand it. I want to dive in a t-shirt and a pair of shorts. That's it. You know. So I was just curious, but I would make an exception to be able to dive in the wild with the Pacific Northwest octopus for sure.
Well, it's the giant Pacific octopus. The reason why my head twists is because there's the Pacific Northwest tree octopus, which is which isn't real,
which is a lizard.
I'm sitting there going, where is he going with this?
But there's a whole lot of information on the Pacific Northwest tree octopus. It's one of the best scams going just for fun.
So Nick, why haven't you been scuba diving? And is it because you're a jerk?
It is not. It's because I'm afraid of mimic
That's
octopuses.
enough out of you, Nick.
Right, I know. Lobsters pee out their face. I read that once. That's all I know. I don't like water.
Mac, why haven't you been scuba
Is
diving?
that why lobster rolls are so good?
There's no good reason. There's literally no good reason that I have not been scuba diving. I would really like to do it. I need to get certified. And
We should.
We've been on some trips with Rich, and it's great.
In warm water, when you can see, like in Okinawa, we could see 80 feet at night with no lights. I mean, the visibility is just astronomical there. In warm water, where you can see a long way, it's the most fun you can have with your clothes on. 100% guaranteed. I love scuba diving.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, I'm just now. I can't. I think we're about out of time, and it's so terrible. But I think the last image I'm going to take away from today's show, even though Rich was a great guest, is you in a t-shirt and shorts, all wet.
Oh, you love it, and you know it.
I'm sure there's a George Clinton quote for that too.
Before we
Hey,
go,
do we have a tech team that works on this show by any chance, Mac?
well, I was just going to say before we go, Jacob, what was my favorite thing that I today from the show?
Your favorite thing on the show today was when that game that Vinny was playing ended.
You're a mind reader. So yes, thanks to our crew, Nikki Sokolsky, Steven Sokolsky, mostly Nikki Sokolsky, of course. Thanks to Rich Ross, and as we do every show, like to end with a little wisdom from George Clinton. Do not attempt to adjust your radio. We will return it to you as soon as you are groovy. I'm Matt King. See you on Don't Everybody Leave.
Hey, give us some.
Howdy, I'm Matt King. Thanks for watching Don't Everybody Leave. Subscribe to the channel, hit the bell. I think that makes you get notifications. I don't know how any of this works. Really, subscribe. Thanks a bunch.